Hey, ActiveXer. So, 5 things you must do to fix chronic low back pain. And the first one on this list is, and perhaps most importantly, is you must understand your back. Now, this is not rocket science. If you wanted to, fix your electric car, you'd have to understand electric cars, wouldn't you? Or at least you'd have to take the car to somebody that understood how that car worked. So if you're going to fix your own lower back, it's important that you understand how your lower back works. Pure and simple. Yeah. So this is very important. If you don't understand it, you can't possibly fix it. Or rather, it might get better by chance, and hey, that's what happens in a lot of cases. I used to have a tutor when I was an osteopathic student who was a rare breed. He was a clinical psychologist as well as an osteopath. And as students, we'd have to go to Dr. Randall and present the case. So we'd have to tell him, what the patient has said and what we think is going on, and then we could go back and examine the patient and carry on from there. And very often, as we were turned around, walking down the corridor back towards the patient, Doc Rand would call after us and say, "Oh, remember," and you turn around, say, "Now remember, many of your patients will get better despite what you do to them," which is really annoying when you're studying osteopathy or probably any clinical subject, when your tutor tells you that your patients will get better despite what you do to them. So it's true, many people improve, but remember that cliff of pain model. You fall off the cliff, you're in pain, you want to get better again, but most people just focus on getting back onto the cliff top, and often that happens just because it does. So just because you get better doesn't mean that you had a good plan. It could just be by chance, and of course, because your body will always try to get better, which is fabulous. So if you want to fix chronic, long-term low back pain, though, you will need more than luck. You will need a plan. The second thing is understand pain. So pain is a huge subject. As you'll know, if you listened to my stuff before, I had the pleasure of doing a master's degree in pain management at Edinburgh University, finished in 2015. Probably the single best thing I have done since graduating in 1991. So it's vitally important that if you are trying to fix chronic, persistent, recurrent lower back pain, that you understand how pain works, because it ain't simple, but there are some good sound principles. And if you stick to the same principles, then through understanding pain, then you stand a far better chance of making a long-term recovery. So that's number 2 on the list of things that you must do if you want to fix lower back pain or chronic lower back pain. Number 1 was understand your back, and 2 is understand pain. And the third thing is you must get a tailor-made plan. No Dr. Google for you, no looking up YouTube for exercises. Your back is unique to you. Your pain experience is unique to you. It's something that's built up probably over years, but certainly over many months. And if you're going to unravel it, you need to make sure that the plan is tailored to you and not just something, a collection of interesting tidbits that you've gleaned from YouTube and Google. So vitally important, if you want that long-term solution to chronic lower back pain, by definition, chronic means long-term recurrent. So actually the official description is chronic is anything lasting more than 12 weeks. Okay, so if you want that fix, you need to get a tailor-made plan, not something off the shelf, not something cobbled together by you or your mum or the neighbour or the guy at work at the drinks machine who said, "Oh, I had this and all you have to do is X, Y, and Z." Doesn't work. Take it from me, you need a tailor-made plan. The fourth thing that you must do is to set an ambitious goal. Okay? It is not, in my experience, it is not enough to say that you want pain relief, that you want your back to feel better. I'm going to take you back to the cliff of pain to explain why. So there you are, bumbling through life, everything's fine, 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 and then you fall off that cliff and you find yourself in that sea of pain. Now, if your goal is to get back up onto the cliff top, that only takes you onto the cliff top, but you're still on the edge potentially of another occurrence. And this is why persistent and recurrent lower back pain is so very common, is because people only regain the cliff top, but they're still on the edge. All it takes is another puff of wind and you fall off again. And you can yo-yo up and down that cliff face many times until eventually you just have persistent chronic low back pain. So where do you need to be to reduce the risk? As much as possible, as far back from the edge as possible, or as high up the mountain as possible. You just need to keep climbing, keep getting back from that cliff edge, because otherwise it will and does happen again. Okay, so now that ambitious goal, I have many blog posts, podcast episodes on that goal setting, so I'm not going to dive into the detail here, but take it from me, you need to set a more ambitious goal than just getting out of pain, because getting out of pain only gets you onto the cliff top, doesn't get you right back from the edge. So we've covered the importance of understanding your back, understanding pain, getting a tailor-made plan, and setting an ambitious goal. The last thing is, and it's stating the blindingly obvious, but here we go, you have to stick to the plan. Yeah, that is where so many people go wrong. You know, even if they get a good plan, they very rarely stick to it. Now, I have come across the odd exception over the years, but having seen thousands of people, probably over 10,000 people by now, with persistent lower back pain, it is my experience that over the years, of the people who've had kind of early lower back pain, so maybe just getting into the chronic, just over the 12-week period, or maybe they've had a few episodes in the last year or two, of that huge group, there are very few who stick to the plan, probably a handful, and they just get it. Two of them I can think of off the top of my head are what we would describe as kind of business leaders and high achievers. And they just took my word for it that if you don't do X, Y, and Z, this is going to happen again. So they said, okay, that's fine, Gavin, I'll keep doing X, Y, and Z. And they just keep doing it, and they're fine. And I know this because I bumped into one a few years ago around Christmas time. I was out for a walk with my family, bumped into him, not physically, but met him out doing the same with his family, and we had a little chat. And just as I was leaving, he said, "Oh, Gavin, the reason I've never been back to see you is that I just followed your advice and I'm still doing the exercises today." And that was about 6 years after I had seen him. And I only saw him 3 times, gave him some exercises to do, and 6 years later, he was still doing the exercises 6 days a week, just as I do. So having a good plan, point number 3, only gets you halfway there. You have to stick to the plan. Now, if you want help with that plan, go to backpainandsciatica.co.uk. You can do self-help there. There is a free online questionnaire. It's a chatbot that I've programmed that will work out essentially what's called a functional assessment for your back, and it will give you that functional assessment for free. There's no obligation. You just do the online assessment. It sends you a PDF with all that information on it, and then you just stick to the plan of exercise to get better. You can, if you want to, connect with yoga, Pilates, fitness instructors on the site, but in essence, that gives you the beginnings of your plan. Then the key thing is sticking to the plan, and as I say, if you want help with that, we can give you help. If you just want to self-serve and do it your own way, you can do that too. Okay? There we have it. I hope you've got something very practical and useful. Some of the blindingly obvious, but sometimes the blindingly obvious needs to be stated in this 5 things you must do to fix chronic or persistent low back pain. Okay, see you again soon.